Welcome back to Naturally with Karen. How are you today? It's Saturday, the end of February. I guess it's a leap year in colonial terms. I don't really pay attention to a lot of that. But what I do pay attention to is that today is the 29th, and my son died October 29th. He transitioned from Earth. If you don't know, that's why I use the term he died. So we shed the physical body and what we have inside of us, which is spirit. A lot of humans tried to measure spirit, and they put people on scales even when they knew that they were going to die a predictable death, like maybe having an execution inside of a prison, or something like that. And they measured, and they typically found about 4 ounces leaves the body. So we're going to talk a little bit about wolf medicine. I just came from outside with the pack. I live with 3 dogs, and the majority of my entire life I've lived with dogs, usually really big bully breed dogs. Often I've rescued probably about 50 pit bulls. Preceding having my son 24 years ago, he was 24 when he transitioned 4 months ago today. So I have some sadness. I have some sadness that I don't have my son to wrap my arms around. And I also have, there's a beautiful squirrel out my window. I just came from outside. It's 19 degrees in northeastern Minnesota. I'm originally from California, 42 years. And bear with me, I know some of you are like, we already know all that stuff. But there's also a lot of new people that are joining. And so I want to thank you, first of all. And I want to share with you that what I'm going to be sharing, even more so because I've really been trapped up for the last 3 years with trap systems, is that I have been learning for a very long period of time in my life. I'm now a wise woman elder to some, not all. There are elders to myself, meaning they're a little older. They're a little more experienced. Some are not. But getting wolf out today and then feeding them, I have a high mid-content wolf dog, and starting in the early 1980s, I lived with a chow and wolf dog that was also high mid-content animal, a being. I don't like to put leashes around their neck except for when I'm out there near the streets. I like to go to dog parks, and I like to just kind of pull the car over somewhere where I feel like there's not a lot of people around and let them out. And we do dog parks too, but Fire's a little bit crotchety right now because he's got some arthritis in the fronts of his legs, which is really common. They were eating poorly on occasion during the time that my son was going through a lot of issues. So one thing that stands out about wolf dogs and wolves as compared to just straight domesticated canines, the average American, that people would call a house pet. I'm wearing my son's black sweater today. Makes me think about him. Let me take this down just a little bit here. Is how they hold their tail when they're out in nature. So I'm able to kind of really get a read on her, on Luna Avalon Blackfoot, when she's outside. And I'm not trying to take on anybody else's culture. This is me, and I'm very much into nature, and I'm very much into original medicine as I learned it from the grandmothers. But her tail, how she holds it, will really give me signals about how she's feeling, or even if someone is approaching way, way down the road, long before the other 2 males, which are a Chihuahua and a Rottweiler, talk about, really different, types of animals, a 5-pound teacup Chihuahua, who's my granddog, and Fire, who will be 8 years old in July, who's a 185-pound Rottweiler with a 31 or maybe 32-inch neck now. His choke chain's getting extremely tight. I have to have something on him to get him back into the car when we go outside, and then I like to take it off when he's in the house so he's not having the burden of that around his neck. So there's a consciousness. I move with them as my equals. I don't move with them as my pets. I don't move with them as just animals that I see as some lower life form. And I've moved with animals my whole life, with the monkeys, the capuchins and the woolly monkeys, the squirrel monkeys, from the time I was very, very, very little, and large birds. And then I lived in places like Chimiquita Park in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Los Gatos foothills, in tiny homes that were very rustic, very, very tiny homes, often that just had a small wood burning fireplace to keep you warm. Really rustic and funky places. And I'm doing a lot of throat clearing right now because with the enormous stress that I was under, and I'm going to talk a little bit about flailing and things like that because I got a text today and I want to share that with you. I want to share what it means. When your thyroid starts to tank, you can do a lot more, it starts to go down in energy. You could do a lot more throat clearing. You could feel a lot more congested. And it also has to do with your dietary choices, but certainly your stress level and your inflammation. And that really, really peaks for a mother losing our children. So losing our child. And for many people, it was many children. So how Luna holds her tail, what she does with her food, if she gets a piece of a chicken, a leg quarter or something like that, she'll sit there and kind of lick it and just look at the other dogs, which is really different than kind of how Fire will just wolf it down. What's up? Much respect, my sister. Oh, bless up. Good to see you. So wolf medicine is different because I've got a side to me that is very different than someone who's bear medicine predominantly. I've got a side to me from something very different from someone who's maybe otter medicine or, who's more of a bird, spirit animal type person. You are an amalgamation of animal and plant. You're in an earthly skin bag, which is made up of these nutritional elements. And that's why I do the hair tissue testing. So for decades now, I've said, why do we have beauty salons where we're manicuring our hair? My hair is going back into some really nice dreadlocks. Most of them are in the back, but these will be forming too. Some of these are already forming. And your hair can become something like an absolutely beautiful natural tree outside. You can start to just blossom, which is what I'm hoping to do on a physical level. I would say by the end of July or the end of August, is to get my health back on track and process through this grief that I'm going through with the loss of my child. A 24-year-old, my son was 24 when he died. Wolf medicine is very, very protective, very loyal, very introspective, very, very quiet unless it needs to communicate. So for most of my life as a child, if you talk to Winona Hennebree Weaver, who I grew up with, and Carol Lowther, people will tell you she didn't talk very much. She was always just really, really quiet because wolf is observing while it's young, and it knows to wait until you're into the wiser years of your life. Aside from asking questions and learning, you keep your mouth shut and you learn from the elders, right? You don't run out and try to be the know-it-all. So typically, even with my son passing, I did not turn to a younger woman when my energy was destabilized. It gets destabilized losing your child. I don't care how spiritual you are. Maybe some women can 2 to 3 days later pick up and have a big smile on their face and function. Some completely fall apart. Some hit the bottle, the alcohol, and some hit the Xanax, and some hit the gym. And I got to work and I got, some celebrations of life, 2 of them going, so that all of his friends could be there and that my son could be aware that those were his last earthly parties on life, so to speak, that he was going to be honored and respected. And I brought my djembe drum and I played a little bit, my djembe drum. And I asked the ancestors to receive my son because I'm not a religious person. I don't do religion. Okay? I don't. So God, for me, I find out in nature. Whatever you want to call God, whatever that means to you, that's a personal decision, okay? Wolf medicine can be very, very, very vicious, meaning that if you hurt someone that I love, I'm definitely not going to be the Pollyanna and kind of roll over. I'm definitely, depending on your pack order, and I'm an elder, I've acquired a lot of, insights, a lot of knowledge, and I've formulated a lot of wisdom. So I'm definitely going to be someone who's not going to shy back from using my power. When you're dealing with someone who's a crone, that power is not going to be something that they're going to say, I warned you, and I warned you, and I warned you, and I warned you not to do that thing and not to hurt my people. But eventually, that power comes out in a way that is really not very understood in today's world, which means that people can hurt you with their mind. right? And instead of being afraid of that, instead of saying, oh my God, what the heck's going on? Is she doing some kind of voodoo or some kind of whatever? Man, that's not what it is, okay? I can watch someone like I just did going out in the woods just now, right? 19 degrees. It's kind of a little bit of a gray day on a Saturday. So I know that it's 19 degrees. There's probably not going to be a lot of people out walking. I can let the pack and I out. We could do a little walking out there, over by a campground that's not really happening right now because of the cold. People have taken off and then they kind of come back in the spring and the summer. And I can watch someone, with a real stiffy kind of a rigid walk, and you can tell just observing from behind them what the mentality is, okay? I can tell when I can see someone who's got concealer on, eyeliner, lipstick, fingernail on in their mentality, they're still caught up in keeping up with the Joneses, right? As opposed to pull your hair back and, keep your personal hygiene up and et cetera, et cetera. Wolf medicine has learned over long decades so that by the time you're in your 8th and certainly your 9th moon, if you have applied yourself well, you can tell volumes about people by watching their footing, taking them out into a trail, out into the woods, watching how they walk and seeing if they're able to notice and observe. Do they even understand synchronicities? Are they able to access and use their intuition? Let me clarify something. I heard this today on another YouTuber's channel when I was at the gym on the elliptical for an hour. And the YouTuber was saying, this woman is really an empath and she does intuitive readings. Well, this woman was in her 30s. So first of all, she's not really experienced. I don't care how experienced she is. She's not a very experienced person. She can do readings. But every single person is an empath because empathy is an animal trait. It's not just a human trait. It's also an animal trait, It's an animal trait. That's why we take care of our young, right? Empathy is care, connection. It's connection and care. Now, some of the people that are going to be the most absolutely phenomenally intuitive are going to have a really high ratio on their hair tissue test, and I'm going to know it when I see it. And when it's too high, it means that they're just airy-fairy and all over the place, and you can't understand what their readings are, and they're going to be kind of, fast talking and maybe rabbit anxiety and everything else. And so the medicine that I've put together took me a lifetime to get here. So I'm going to start becoming extremely selective with who I choose to work with, because especially with my son's passing, one of the things I've learned is not just to give to everybody because they're curious, because the majority of the people aren't going to really come through and do what it needs to do, what they need to do to change, and to heal themselves, which is to move away from the dominant thinking, which is that vaccines protect you and medications heal you. They relieve your symptoms because they're drugs, and they're drugs that have been, put into compounds using a lot of our natural substances. But it's like the original aspirin where they compounded it with coal tar. Now you turn it into something that is not really hospitable to the body, okay? So original medicine, when we had maladies, we had imbalances that were quite simple. Unlike today, we've been injecting people with vaccines for so many decades that the mutation of those vaccines into any individual body has created other issues and other strains of problems that we don't even fully comprehend. It's like an experiment in motion, in progress, okay? So wolf spirit is looking, I can speak for myself as a wolf spirit. Wolf came to me when I was 4 years old, and I was laying in my room as a little girl in my own bed, and wolf came to the side of the bed. Now, I used to feel kind of, there's a pun intended here, I used to feel kind of sheepish to say this, because I knew that all of my peers and all the people around me would go, what do you mean wolf came to you on the side of your bed? That's exactly what I mean. I mean, the spirit of an animal, which is my primary identifying animal spirit, came to me. Sometimes one, two, three beings spoke and took me places. And yet we live in a world that only really understands this as mental illness. You know, when the derangements seem so patently obvious to me of us using the harsh number of synthetic man-made chemicals, that I've got clients that come in that are using decongestants, Flonase, and things like this on a daily basis because they never got mothered. They were never truly mothered like a wolf would mother her cubs, protecting and loving and guiding and showing this is how we eat. This is how we heal. This is what you need to know. But now today, bam, you got to farm them out onto baby Einstein after you inject the hell out of them, compromise their immune system. We all go, why does everyone have a brain toxicity issue that we lump into the category of ASD, autistic spectrum disorder? Why are so many people coming down with Alzheimer's and dementia? And now I worked with a gal for 9 years, Brenda Summerfield, who lost 2 of her children. It was Pick's disease. At first, it was labeled pseudo-dementia. And her husband and the Mayo Clinic down in Rochester swore that she would not make it that long. But I worked with her for 9 years, hands-on, energetically, massage, if you want to call it that. I have to be licensed to do something, to be able to hold a business license in a world that says you better have a business license or you're not something. You better have a credential and put it on the wall, or you can't call yourself something, right? And so now the very, very, very few of us left who are legitimately a shaman, meaning that we hear the ancestors, hear them. We have insights that are very, very profound from hands-on, in and out and in and out of a treatment room for 17 years in Minnesota and many, many, many years before that in California. Why am I sharing this with you? Because it's not something you can learn. You cannot be a shaman because you put your hand on a compass machine and you plug it into the computer and you're doing an electroacupuncture, electroacupressure, and electrosensing about what your hair tissue minerals are. That is a bunch of crap. It doesn't work. It might give you a fun little reading and it might be a fun thing for you to do. But I'm actually insulted when I'm approached by people in Cloquet, Minnesota who say, yeah, we've got a shaman at our church. She's only in her 20s. And I said, wow, what is she doing? Oh, she's got the compass and you put your hand on the thing and it lets you know what kind of supplements you need. You're not going to find your medicine always in a bottle. You know, I mean, I know that the little tiny natural food store over here is making a damn fortune selling bottle after bottle after bottle of red yeast rice because of my cholesterol and blankety blank because of my blood pressure. And I'm sitting over there renting professional space for 17 years, working with the handfuls of people who say, wait a minute, I'm supposed to go over there and buy red yeast rice. I'm supposed to go over there and, come on, man. And then I'm at the gym and there's a TV in front of me and I've got to watch whatever in the hell the damn doctor's show is, where there's a white, arrogant idiot on the damn screen talking about putting down Irish moss and sea vegetables. When you've got people that I have learned from that are now in their mid-70s that have harvested from the sea most of their entire lives, and they know the benefit of a mineral-rich, salty-rich body, and they know how connected we are to the waters, to the ocean, to the lakes, to the streams. How can you be a moving bag of water? And whether, depending on who you listen to, 70, 72, 80% water, depending on who you listen to. One of the last doctors that I was taking a course from said we were 80% water. Most of the books I read say that we're 72% water. We're high water. I know that I drank this container of 59 ounces, and I'm going to finish it before I go today here in just a little while, with what I put in there for myself to open my methylation pathways, to open my detoxification pathways, to power up my body. In fact, I go where I rent business space, and Diane and a couple of the gals both said, You were tore up from a really, really, really hard couple of 2.5, 3 years of trying to keep your son alive, right? And then the last year was excruciating. No sleep, poor diet, a good chunk of the time, fight or flight mentality, you know, watching your son drop down on the ground and Narcan him, watching him, as I'm going to read a text to you here and keep the person anonymous, but I got a text this morning, this rise. I was telling somebody at the gym who said, good morning. And I said, I am mourning. Yes, I am mourning. I wish I wasn't, but I am mourning and it really hurts. And he goes, what? I was like, it's word sound. Word sound. I mean, good death, good morning. He goes, well, what would you say then? I said, well, we usually say greetings, don't we? I mean, if you go to Quora and you look up Karen Pringle, you'll find out I've got over 1.3 million content there because I worked for that. And I wrote free answers over 3,000 times for people. And I start almost every answer, after a period of time with greetings. I'm greeting someone, right? That's the appropriate English to use, or the appropriate language. So let me read this text to you. Pardon me while I pull it up here. And this is what came in today at 10:40 a.m. Hey, so blank is out, he's using, and he's now flailing just like your Zawa did. Everything, let me put my glasses on because it's really super tiny. He flails out just like how Zawa did every time he uses, and just like Zawa, he doesn't really remember it, and he used to hate it when Zawa would do that around him. It's literally the same thing, and he never used to be like that. Did you say that you knew what that might be? My text back was 3 letters. YES. 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 I know why. I know why that is. I know why our people and my son were flailing. Now, what is the definition of flailing? So if someone's in the water and they're drowning, their arms are going all over the place. They're flailing all over the place. Ah, help. But it's also like an urban term, which is like, ooh, flailing around. Like, my son would be the medical terminology for it was diaphoretic, spastic, and the overarching terminology for it was sympathomimetic toxidrome, right? So when you take an opioid, heroin is an opioid, right? Fentanyl is an opioid that's hundreds of times stronger, depending on what you're getting. It's an analgesic, it's a pain reliever. It makes people sleepy, makes them relax. It's a sedative. It's sedating. But when you're flailing around, it's as if you're on a stimulant, okay? Now, I know some man is going to come around with a white lab rat jacket on, and need to be the superior knowledge because they're a doctor. But I'm getting pretty sick and tired of a system that says, well, only the people that went and trained under the American Medical Association. I had no desire to ever do that. I'll tell you that right now, okay? No desire. I do a combination of things, and for 48 years, because I'm 58, so by the time I was 10, I knew what it was to be able to do a very quick intuitive reading for myself. I didn't have to do an extremely fancy spread. I don't do it as a fortune teller, so just get that out of your mind. This is one of my decks of cards. I have many. I really enjoy the Mother Peace deck. But just like I sent Kim today at Pure Luminosity an article on quantum physics. Oh, white colonial science is really looking into quantum physics, superpositions, photons, pushing the photons through the slit. Because after all, we're starting to figure out that it's possible that we might be able to be in more than one place at one time. Because if you take a superposition, like if you take a picture of something and you see it, both up and down, you can see it superpositioned. So I am not going to live my life trapped in a 3D bubble that other people are comfortable with. nor am I going to listen to the abuses of witchcraft, voodoo, she's against God, she's a fortune teller, baloney. You got mediums on here that you're paying for, and let me tell you what they're doing, because they're not actually speaking to dead people. This is very, very simple. I knew this at the age of 9 through my grandmothers. They are accessing the field of the person, and they're accessing the person's memories of the other person. Does it mean that you can also, bless up, Dread Electric, good to see you, Nikki. Does it mean that you are able to hear those who have left the physical plane, the matrix, the plantation? Yes, you can. I hear my son. I hear a whisper. I see images. He directs me through synchronicities, just like yesterday when I was sitting in front of Whole Foods and I gave you the live stream and I said, here comes the brown and black shirt. Like right now I've got his black sweater on, right? I pull up my cards and I asked a reading because I was a little bit concerned about this housing issue that I have right now, my shelter, right? And what did I get? The Ace of Wands. If you don't know, the wands have everything to do with relationships. And the ace, what is the ace? I mean, you know what the ace is. The ace is like the best card, right? All right. The next one, the princess, because what I usually do for myself is 1 or 3 card reading, not because I'm not simple, because I've been doing readings for 48 years. I can do very long, involved readings. But most of the time I want a quick answer. And what did I just say about quantum physics and synchronicities? If I can't tap into my mind because my energy is not stable, I can tap into the field, which is tapping into myself. It's not channeling any kind of freaking entities or anything. Don't be that stupid, please. The Princess of Swords has a meaning, and the swords always has to have to do with a lot of power, potentially weaponry, could have to do with cutting ties, leaving things behind. But she's standing in the evening and she's looking at a message. Okay. So there's a message that's coming. And lastly, my son used to make cards. I told him, don't you go to the store and buy a card for $1, $2, $3, $4, whatever in the hell they sell the damn cards for. Don't buy a Hallmark card. Don't buy a Hallmark. Just keep it natural. Keep it flowing. Just make me a card. Just like when you went to school at Waldorf, make something pretty. Put some colors on it and give a message that comes from your heart, not something that's rubber stamped out of Hallmark. Okay. And the last card was the Empress. Okay. And Zawa used to always call me, my mama, the Empress, So when I got the Ace of Wands, I knew it was the best possible card dealing with relationships. And so when I asked this particular question, would this be a good move for me? I got the Ace of Wands. Ooh, yeah. And the Princess of Swords, lots of creativity, lots of good messages coming. And I got the Empress, the best thing for Mama. Mama is the Empress to Zawa, right? You're probably the Empress to someone in your life too. Now I asked about having a handyman come to my house and I got reversed, meaning it's upside down. I got my hair stuck on there. Reversed. 8 of Hearts. Hearts always have to do, or they might be called the cups in a different deck that you have. It might not be the hearts. It might be the cups, right? Cups is kind of the old school way of calling the hearts. And reversed means you want to, sometimes you're looking at the opposite meaning of it, which meant stop and think things through just a little bit, but it's probably going to be a really good situation for you. It's probably going to be a real win-win. So I know in this situation, I'm going to have to kind of do a little bit of like pre-teaching with this person that I'm going to have coming on board to be the handyman in my house, but it's all going to work out. Okay. I asked if this one particular question about my house, would it do what I needed it to do this summer? I got the 5 of Swords. Okay. Now, if you're new to tarot cards, a lot of my clients, I will kind of do a quick reading really quick unless someone says, hey, I'm a Christian. I'm totally, absolutely against that. And I got to respect that, right? I do the coaching sessions. I do spiritual guidance sessions with people through the computer, just like we're doing right now. I'm going to check my time because I have to leave in 2 minutes. So I might do a quick little three card reading so I can kind of really just kind of tune into someone's energy before I do their coaching session. So when I get together with someone and they tell me they're flailing out, I'm going to look at their tongue. I'm going to ask them a few questions. I'm going to send them to my website at naturallywithkaren.com, and I'm going to have them fill out the wellness form under the coaching tab. There's one for canines and there's one for humans. And it's a form, and you fill out as much as you're comfortable. The more you give me, the less you're going to pay me during your time for me to ask you questions. So I made it in such a way that it was really user-friendly, instead of me being the typical coach and having just a little tiny bit of information so I didn't burden you, and now charging you for the time to ask you all those questions. So I'm going to get going because I got to take off now. Wolf medicine, what I do as an original medicine woman and an elder shaman, is very, very, very different than your doctor. It's extremely different. Okay. It means that I look at the whole picture. It means that I look at the root causative. It means that I want to see your hair tissue test, which is a profile number 2 under hair tissue testing on my website. But I strongly recommend that you get the $240 package, which contains the half-hour consult. You can do it on the phone if you don't want to do it on a video, because I was really intimidated to get my face. I mean, I'm 58. I've been through hell and back. I feel pretty rugged right now, pretty rough, but I've got my face on here. I'm also dreadlocking, so my hair doesn't look like, like a lot of people would consider, wow, she's got really pretty hair. I mean, I'm pulling it back, and I love it, and I think it's really beautiful because I'm like so connected to nature that I see myself as a beautiful tree, no matter what my process, no matter where I am. I don't judge myself as harshly anymore like I did when I was younger, and I was prey, P-R-E-Y, to the system. So I know a lot of people are really well-intentioned, and they say things like, your son is resting in paradise and he's blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, he isn't. My son's in transition. He's on the way back. Trust me, I know that for a fact. I've done my readings. I've had Auntie. If you need a good reading done and you don't want to go with me, I've got a gal that's over in Chile that does them also through the computer, who I went to. She's the same exact age as me. I'm not going to trust a younger woman when it comes to something like this. I want someone who's well experienced. And that's why people come to me when it comes to their coaching, interpreting their hair tissue testing, reversing disease, and spiritual guidance, because that's what a shaman does. We learn how to hear. I've learned how to hear the field, and I've been doing it for over 50 years. Same thing with moving with animals. So I'm going to get going. I got to get out the door. Thank you for joining me. I hope, if you haven't already, that you'll subscribe and help me to get to a place where we can start to build this as a little bit more mainstream. So have a great day and take good care of yourself. I send you all love.